once again, I'd like to thank you, as always, for sticking with me through this journey about pediatric cancer, through our journey of our daughter, JC, who is battling brain cancer for 520 days and ultimately gained her angel wings on July 3rd of 2021, and we are forever advocating in her honor. I started this podcast as a way to kind of give back, as a way to allow people to relate to another family or relate to somebody on a deeper and more personal level when understanding what pediatric cancer is and understanding what it does to a family, to a patient, to a community, a lot of times is kind of forgotten or put on the back burner. And we see that a lot also with legislation. We see it with communities in general because they don't understand how pediatric cancer, how a diagnosis like this or any kind of really life-threatening illness, how it affects an entire family, how it affects, an entire school or entire workplace or anything like that. It affects more than just the person. And that was my purpose with this, not only sharing our story personally and our personal feelings, our personal thoughts, our personal experiences, but also being able to kind of give people something else to relate to when much like we did going through this, a lot of times you just feel alone and you don't know who to reach out to. You don't know who to turn to or who you can talk to who's not just going to blow you off because they don't want to hear the dirty secret that is pediatric cancer. Recently, on a side note, recently I became a peer mentor for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, and I will say that in everything that I've done so far with the advocacy work and trying to get legislation passed, that this has by far been the most fulfilling work. I've been able so far to reach out to one family and speak to them on a level that we were in their same exact spot. A lot of things going with their journey with their daughter is bringing them to the same places we were at the same times, with the exception of we had nobody to turn to. Our friends and family, of course, were supportive. Our community was supportive. But unless you know somebody, especially right in that realm, that understands literally what you're going through, it is very hard to get support and explain to somebody what you're going through and have them really be able to be empathetic because they don't understand every single emotion and feeling or why you have those emotions and feelings. What it's like every single day to live on the edge, literally, of your seat, not knowing what that next cough means or what that next headache or that next bruise or what that next test is going to bring. Scanxiety, PTSD, these are real and true things that I don't think a lot of people associate with cancer patients or cancer parents or cancer families for that matter. PTSD, rightfully so, is often really given to soldiers or first responders, and which, like I said, rightfully so, they're going through traumatic times, and therefore a lot of things down the road can cause them to have triggers or cause them to have reactions because of what they've been through and what they've seen. Us too, on a different level though, and I talked about it last week about triggers, and I've talked about it before about things that hit home that maybe you don't see that would hit home to somebody that wouldn't make a lot of sense to you, why that would set somebody off or why that would get somebody in their feels or things like that. And this is along the same lines. PTSD is a real thing. You feel everything that your child is going through, and you feel every single time that you were not able to stop that from happening. You were not able to fix it, and as a parent, you feel like you're supposed to fix it no matter what. This diagnosis, because this is what we understand. This diagnosis is by far the most helpless diagnosis for a family because as parents, you are supposed to be able to fix everything that goes wrong with your child. You're supposed to be there, stop bad things from happening to them, making sure essentially they're in a bubble and nobody can get to them and nothing can hurt them. This is the most helpless feeling that I have ever felt in my entire life. And my wife, I believe, would agree. And all the families that we've met through this journey, through our nonprofit, through this podcast, through the advocacy, I think would understand and agree. You cannot be more helpless than a parent watching their child go through something that you cannot find the answer to and you cannot solve the equation. And so you every single time something happens, every single time something puts your child in the hands of somebody else, a doctor, a hospital, a therapist, whatever, and takes it out of your hands, that post-traumatic stress. Okay, there's the trauma of hearing your child has cancer, the trauma of this treatment isn't working, the trauma of we're going to put your child through surgery 10 hours. We're going to be inside of their head, inside of their brain, messing around, getting these tumors out, getting this thing out. We're going to be doing MRIs every day. We're going to be doing CTs every day. We're going to be doing so much testing that your child should stick to the wall with the amount of radiation that we're going to put through them. You can't fix it. The stress of a trauma like that on a parent when things finally slow down enough for you to realize and really process what's going on is crippling. And it honestly has brought me to my knees many times. A lot of, you know, throughout this entire thing, my wife and I have been told how strong we are. My wife and I have been told by people that they don't know how we do it, how we get up in the morning. Well, number one, we weren't given a choice. But number two, it's because you don't see the whole picture. You don't see everything that goes on behind the scenes. You don't see the breakdowns. You don't see the bad days. You don't see the arguments that sometimes ensue because, you know, you're both going through something or you're just in a bad way one day and you just don't know why. Um, you don't see all of that behind the scenes. We put up a wall, we put up a front to mask a lot of the emotions and a lot of the feelings that we're going through because we don't want to put that on the rest of the world. However, at the same time, we kind of do because we want other people to listen to what we're saying. We don't want you to understand it by feeling the pain. We just want you to listen so that you be willing to help us make a change so these kids don't have to go through this stuff anymore. Scanxiety is a massive thing. You get your scans on day one and you know, okay, everything looks great, we'll see you in 3 months. In 3 months, okay, that first month you're riding high because everything looks great, your kid is doing wonderful, things are feeling great, you're not showing any signs or symptoms, everything is okay. Month two, you're still riding high, but you're starting to get a little bit worried that when's the other shoe going to drop. You know, it's going too well. What do we do? Month three, before you get to those scans, you're freaking out. You're freaking out because you're wondering if that percentage of people that get bad news is going to be you. You're wondering if things have been too good, if things have been too easy and too positive. That again, when's that shoe going to drop? Is this going to be the time? Is this going to be that scan day when they tell us something's wrong? And you can't stop worrying. It doesn't matter how many years out you are. Now, technically, they tell you that 5 years out of clear scans is cancer free, but you will still be getting scans every year or every 6 months, depending on what your protocol is. You will still be getting scanned for the rest of your life to make sure that things don't come back so that they can catch it early. It doesn't matter if you're 10 years down the road and you've had clear scans for 10 years. That month, that day, that week, whatever, before that scan on your 10th year, you will be freaking out and you will be worried about whether or not your child is going to, there's something else is going to happen. Because that's the real stress. That's that post traumatic, but that's that scanxiety. That's anxiety of what's coming. No matter how good things are, you're always worried that something else bad is going to happen because you've already been dealt a shitty hand. And at what point does everything just turn around for you? So today I wanted to really talk about something that was brought up to me, and a lot of times, you know, in conversations with other people, in conversations with my wife or my family or something like that, or an event, will trigger a memory or trigger a thought or something, and I will quickly write something down that I want to talk about in the podcast. Now, um, one thing that was brought up recently that I wanted to talk about or address more is addressing the actual children that are going through this, addressing their fears, addressing triggers that they have or triggers that you have in general, but they can't properly identify. You can identify something if you're scared of something. Now, listen, on a daily basis, yes, you can have a bad day. Say, I'm just in a bad mood and I have no idea why. There's nothing happened. I just woke up pissed off. It happens. But generally speaking, we can narrow it down to the point we can find that, okay, well, this is why I'm upset, or this is why I'm mad, this is why my day sucks. You can, generally speaking, narrow it down and give yourself a good idea. Um, but children going through this, especially very young, um, although they are incredibly intelligent and intuitive and can figure out what's going on with them, and they don't get enough credit for how much they understand, it's hard for them to express how they feel or what's wrong or what's bothering them or why they're scared or why they're fearful. Um, in general, children, from what we've noticed going through this journey, is that they will always say they're fine, no matter what. You can tell that something's wrong. You can tell something on their face is wrong. You can tell they're not feeling well. You can tell that something needs to be done. Maybe not physically, that they're not physically in pain. They're just sad or they're scared or they're worried or something is bothering them, but they just can't express it. So therefore, it comes out as a universal, "I'm fine." Um, they can't. They just can't explain it, and that's why us as parents, we have to be their voice. We have to be their advocate. If we're going to, a doctor's appointment or something like that, or we're speaking to the doctor on the phone, we have to be able to explain to them what's going on, what we think is happening, because we know our children's baselines better than anybody. And we have to be able to explain that and express that. JC would always say, "I'm okay." You could tell something was wrong, even to the point where she would be crying sometimes. And you could tell she was crying. You could hear it in her voice, even if she was laying down, in our room when she was sleeping in our room, and she would lay down and she would say she was okay. You could tell something was wrong, but she either didn't want to tell us or she didn't understand how to tell us. So she would just say, "I'm fine," and hope we would leave it alone. Now, we never would, but she was kind of hoping that. She would give us that thumbs up, say, "I'm good, I'm fine," and, hope that we would move on. um, we would leave it alone for a little while and then we'd press again and we try to kind of dig through. Trish would a lot of times kind of rattle off things. Are you scared of this? Are you upset about this? Something's coming up tomorrow or the next day. Are you upset about that? Or something, you missed school today. And try to kind of narrow it down. And it wasn't a science. It wasn't a direct science. It was a shot in the dark, and sometimes you'd land on it and you'd be able to kind of talk to her about what's going on and really work through things and give her the opportunity. We were firm believers in treating her like an adult. She had an adult issue going on in her life, um, and she should be treated like someone that demanded respect, and we gave her that. She would often be in that position where she would say, "I don't know why I'm sad." You'd say, "What's the matter?" "I don't know. I'm scared," or "I'm sad. I don't know why." And we say, "Okay," and you try to break it down. Um, but as far as her being scared about her diagnosis or scared about her treatments, she never really expressed that. I mean, a couple times she would let us know that she was scared, um, and but that was, during the relapse. She said that she was scared because she didn't know what was going on. When we found out we had to tell everybody that she was going to have to start chemo, she was scared and she let us know, "I'm scared." And we'd say, "Why are you scared?" "Because I have to go back to the doctor. I have to go, through treatment." She was worried about everything that was going to happen to her, and because she didn't quite understand why her body was changing and not working in her favor when she had been so good for so long. But in the reality of it, these kids are thrown into a diagnosis. You go from feeling okay, feeling decent to feeling like absolute shit and not knowing why. Having no idea why your body hurts, having no idea why you're being sick all the time, no idea why your vision is changing or your moods are changing or you can't concentrate or your stomach hurts for random times but you never get sick. There's so much going on. They're thrown into a diagnosis, and as soon as that diagnosis comes, then comes treatment, chemo, radiation, testing, a fast paced world with no say so. They have no control over what's going on, no control over their own life anymore, over their own body, over their day-to-day activities. And to say that that's overwhelming is probably one of the most massive understatements that can ever be stated in general. You are taken out of your normal every single day life and then just creamed with this incredible um, task in front of you that seems insurmountable. It seems like there's no way in hell you're going to be able to beat whatever the hell just happened because you can't understand it. It's not the common cold. It's not saying, okay, honey, you've got a cold. You're going to need to make sure you wipe your nose. You're going to make sure that you wash your hands a lot. Make sure you cough into your elbow. Make sure that you're not getting too close to people. That you're not eating out of other people. Whatever. That you're not sharing stuff. Like it's not simple like that anymore. It's not in a couple of days you'll feel better. We'll give you some antibiotics and some cold medicine. You'll feel good. Everything will be fine. Give it a couple of days. No, you're thrown into a lifelong battle at 6 years old and said and told, this is what we're going to do. We're going to we're going to put you in these giant machines and do these MRIs that make a lot of noise. We're going to take you into an operating room. We're going to operate on you for 10 hours and then you're going to have to sit in bed because you can't get up for days on end. And then we're going to roll you into the machines over and over again and again and again. Oh, and then we're going to have to operate again. Oh, and by the way, you're going to have your parents step out of the room so we can talk to you. This is for 6 years old. This is a massive responsibility that these kids are asked to undertake without having any say so in the entire matter. And at the same time, especially with JC, she felt for the longest time that everything that was going on was her fault. She felt like this was her fault. If daddy or mommy were stressed, that's her fault. If we yelled at each other, or if we weren't sleeping, or if we were mad at the doctors, or whatever the case may be, that was her fault. She felt that way. She was forever apologizing. I remember very distinctly one of the biggest things for her when we had to go to stem cells and we had to do her stem cell transplant. It was her and I in the hospital for 40 days. Just me and her for 40 days away from my other two girls, away from my wife. It was hard. For 40 days I had to be in there with her. And listen, I would be by her side to the end. That I was not complaining about that at all. Her and I found a way to really get into kind of a routine with each other to be able to comfort each other being away from everybody, but at the same time focus on what she was going through. But at some point, she ended up having to have an NG tube because she wasn't able to keep food down with the way that these medicines went into her. She couldn't keep anything down. So we had to get an NG put in so that she could get the nutrition she needed because she was losing weight and she was already tiny. And I remember um, the first time that she got sick after this NG was in, and she threw it up because it's not, it's just in there, and so it happens. And when it came out, she was so upset, not because she had thrown up, not because the NG had come out. She was upset because she thought she did something wrong, and she's crying and upset. And I said, "What's the matter?" And the nurses came in. She goes, "I'm sorry." She goes, "I'm sorry. I thought I feel like I did something wrong." Like, no, baby, you didn't do anything wrong. This is the shitty life that you were dealt, and you're handling it like a fucking champ. You're doing everything that most people would cry and run from. and you're doing it. None of this is your fault. Okay? You're doing so much better than most adults, I think, would handle a situation. In your case, you're doing it just fine. And reassuring them over and over and over that the fight that they go through, yes, they have to do that. But the worry, the stress, the not sleeping, the uh, handling the medications, the doctors, all that stuff, that is the parents' cross to bear. That's our weight to shoulder, not theirs. And having them understand that is not easy because they feel like they're a burden on us. They feel like they're a burden on our life. And she did that often. It was after the stem cells was big that she'd do that often. She would always apologize to us like it was like she had done something wrong. Or, and yeah, were we getting frustrated? Absolutely. My wife and I weren't sleeping. My wife and I weren't able to focus on anything else. And that's because we were going through this. And yeah, we were frustrated at times because we had no sleep, we had no rest time, we had no answers. So yeah, but it was not her fault. It was never her fault. And reassuring them that that's for us to deal with and not for her. And all she had to worry about was being a kid and getting better. Um, that was the biggest focus. So having her not really be able to explain her fears. Yes, she would tell us I'm scared of, going to the hospital, or I'm, this, that, and the other, but she would never really say she was scared. And I remember at some point, I think asking, or at some point it came up, and I don't think it came up in these exact words, um, but it was brought up to her, was she afraid to go to heaven? And because I think at some point my wife and I and my family and I think at some point we came to not we didn't come to peace or come to terms with it, but I think we came to an understanding inside of us that she wasn't going to be able to make it. Her body was just so battered and war torn through all of this that we I think had come to the understanding that this was probably going to take her from us. And I think, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know when I said it, or when anybody did, but I think at some point it was brought up. Was she afraid to go to heaven? Was she afraid to be with Jesus? And our kids went to Catholic school from pre-K all the way up to eighth grade, and JC was in it at the same school. So they understood God, they understood heaven and hell, and they understood the Bible, and they understood all of that. And I've never been a really highly religious person, but um, I really grasped onto faith for a while, and at the same time, I turned against it when it took JC because I couldn't understand um, how that could happen. But she said she wasn't scared. She had come to peace with her life and the path that she was given, and she wasn't scared. Um, and that, I think, in a child gives you a lot of strength because it makes you realize that they're okay. They're gonna be okay. Um, these kids are incredibly strong. They're intuitive. They're incredibly receptive to what's going on around them, and they understand what we're talking about. There's no more of this, growing up as kids. There's no more spelling something out and hoping that your kids don't catch on. There's no hinting about something and hoping that they don't understand what's going on. No, they feel what you're saying. They hear what you're saying, and they deserve the respect of being talked to about the treatments that are happening and being talked to about what they want, and being talked to about the possibilities of what could happen if you don't do this or if you do this. Um, but at the same time, this cancer is a bitch, and it takes a lot from these kids, and it takes a lot of their abilities to really properly communicate things, especially when it's been going on for a while. It takes their ability to properly let you know what's happening and how they feel. And you really have to be able, as a parent, to kind of decipher those feelings and really, delve deep into their day, into their week, at that point and find out, okay, when did you start feeling this way? When did you feel this way, and how do you feel about this? And really get an idea of why they're feeling the way that they do, but at the same time, in your mind, understanding exactly what they're feeling and understanding exactly how you would feel in that situation, and realizing they feel the same way, but they can't express it. So how would you deal with it? How would you deal with the stress of being in a position where you don't know if you're going to have tomorrow? How would you deal with the stress of knowing, of carrying that kind of weight on your shoulders? Because these kids carry the weight even though you tell them not to. They carry the weight of that, and they're so concerned even at young ages about how you are going to, and that's a lot of their fears too. They're worried about you. They're, even if they're 6 or 7 and you don't feel like they can express it properly, they're worried about you. They're worried about whether or not you as a parent or your siblings or their siblings, they're worried about whether or not they're going to be okay if they're not here. And it's really tough to think about a child having that much um, care for somebody else and not caring so much for themselves. But that's what they are. It is absolutely um, necessary that we treat these children as adults based on what they're going through, and give them the respect that they deserve as those adults. Um, and 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 they earn it. Okay, respect is always earned in life, and these kids not only earn it, but they demand it. They're going through absolute hell every single day. And although they may not have the vocabulary or the knowledge of words and options to really express in anecdotal ways their feelings and their understanding of what's going on, they can absolutely tell you in their own way. You just have to be able as a parent to break down what they're saying and listen and feel what they're going through. Put yourself in their shoes for just a moment and understand that they're going through the worst time of their life, but they're not worried about themselves. They're worried about you. They're worried about their brothers and sisters. They're worried about their classmates. That's a lot for a child to carry. That's a lot for a child to worry about every single day, when they should be worried about whether or not they're going to have extra recess today at school, or whether or not there's going to be a test that they didn't get a chance to study for. They should be worried about whether or not dance class is going to start early. They should be worried about whether or not they're going to get picked on the kickball team. They should be worried about whether or not that boy or girl is going to ask them out to the dance. That's what they should be worried about. They should not be worried about their next cancer treatment. They should not be worried about their next hospital stay, or whether or not their hair is going to fall out, or whether or not they're going to be able to have kids as an adult, or whether or not they're going to be able to do all the things that they set out for themselves, even at a young age. All kids have aspirations of something that they want to be. Now, I would say growing up, a lot of kids, just because of that ideal world, want to be police officers or firefighters, or they want, you know what I mean? That's just one of those things. And but also these kids, they come up with ideas as they move through their short lives of what they want to be when they grow up, what they want to provide to the world. JC wanted to be a NICU nurse. That was her goal, even at 6, 7, 8 years old. That's what she wanted. Um, and worrying about whether or not you're going to be able to do that is a lot. And as parents, being able to encourage that imagination, encourage that drive to do that, encourage that vision, encourage all of that, when a part of you in your heart and your mind knows that your child is never going to have that opportunity, based on everything that they're going through and based on what their body is doing. And it sucks. It sucks to be in a position that there's not more hope. It sucks to be in a position that there's not more options that we have to give to our kids. And it sucks that we have to figure out why they're so scared and why they're so worried and why they're so fearful and why they're so why they have that. They just can't express to us what's going on because they're kids. They're kids, damn it. This is that point in this podcast. This is that point in the journey when you realize this entire mission is about kids. It's about children, infants, to toddlers, to young children. It is about kids that are going through this fight, that are going through this journey and not being able to express themselves because they're not given the opportunity because of the chance or because of the treatment options, because of the protocols, because of the research, because of the funding. They're not given the opportunity to grow up and be able to gain the vocabulary, gain the knowledge, gain the life experience to be able to explain to us what the hell they're thinking and what's going on in their minds. So the reality of the situation is children are not always fine. Much like us as parents, we're broken with that okay being bolded out there a little bit. We're okay on a daily basis. We get up and we do our jobs. We go to work. We do what we need to do to provide for our families or to take care of our families. We do what we need to do. But at the same time, and behind the scenes, which you don't see a lot of, we're broken. We're not okay. And these children are not okay. They say they're fine. They say they're okay. They just don't have the ability to explain what's going on. And we have to find a way to better give them that option. And the only way to better give them that option of being able to explain what's happening and explain how they're feeling, it gives them a better chance to grow up and gain the knowledge, gain the experience, and gain the opportunities to be able to talk to us in a way that we can understand. So once again, I hope that I didn't go off the rails too much. I hope you were able to keep up with that. This is really about something that I was speaking to somebody about, and then again, it caused me to basically come up with a lot of thoughts and remember some things that I was going through with Jace and that our family went through with Jace, and how she was able to communicate with us, but also how she wasn't able to communicate with us. And so it brings up a lot of memories, and I'm hoping, excuse me, that I'm able to relate to you in a lot of ways that you can understand and hear how we went through it and how we felt. Um, I'll be back next week with a new episode. Again, don't know what it's going to be yet. Kind of plan these things as I go through my week and come up with things that were part of our journey, were part of our fight, and also talk about things that are happening in our life right now that have a lot to do with JC. So I will be back next week with a new episode. I have a vision in my head that is probably going to be about the holidays. We're going to be obviously coming up on the third holiday set of holidays without JC, and our friends will be coming up on their first set of holidays without their daughter. And so many out there like us are going to be feeling those first holidays or even the multiple holidays. And I kind of think that as you get further along, um, is a different feel to it. Not a deeper or not a worse than the first type of thing, but it kind of makes you understand that how is this time still going by without you? How is this time still moving without you here feeling? And I've just had this conversation actually yesterday with my wife. So I think maybe that next episode will be with her. It'll be really nice. I like doing the episodes with her. So we'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me, and I will talk to you again.